Hello and welcome to this week's edition of World Panorama, wherein we bring you some top stories from around the world. But first, let's take a look at the headlines. Indicted on charges of bribery, fraud, Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu denounces the investigation against him, pledges to fight back the charges by making them the center of his election campaign in March. U.S. House Intelligence Committee wraps up public hearings in impeachment inquiry against President Donald Trump. House Judiciary Committee to now decide on drafting charges against Trump. Newly elected Sri Lankan President Gotabaya Rajapaksa says he will call snap parliamentary elections at the earliest opportunity, appoints new 16-member cabinet headed by his brother and interim Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. And with 3 weeks to go for parliamentary elections, UK's opposition Labour Party leader Jeremy Corbyn releases election manifesto full of radical promises. Corbyn claims the party will negotiate Brexit within 3 months, create 1 million new green jobs and levy one-off windfall tax on oil companies. Ahead of the 2020 presidential polls, U.S. President Donald Trump is facing impeachment proceedings. The U.S. House of Representatives is conducting public hearing into charges of Trump allegedly abusing his office for political gains in the run-up to the 2020 presidential elections. Trump has denied all charges, saying he has done nothing wrong and he wants a trial.
The investigation phase of the impeachment proceedings against U.S. President Donald Trump were wrapped up on Thursday. Sharp words were exchanged by both Democrats and Republicans. In closing remarks, House Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff summed up the case brought by House Democrats and said, "This president believes he is above the law, beyond accountability."
And I think we need to consult our conscience and our constituents and decide whether that remedy is appropriate here, whether that remedy is necessary here. And as you know, notwithstanding what my colleague said, I resisted going down this path for a long time, but I will tell you why I could resist no more. And it came down to this. It came down to timing. It came down to the fact that the day after Bob Mueller testified, that Donald Trump invited Russian interference. Hey, Russia, if you're listening, come get Hillary's emails. And later that day, they tried to hack her server. The day after he testified that not only did Trump invite that interference, but that he welcomed the help in the campaign. They made full use of it. They lied about it. They obstructed the investigation into it. And all this is in his testimony and his report. The day after that, Donald Trump is back on the phone asking another nation to involve itself in another U.S. election. That says to me, this president believes he is above the law, beyond accountability. And in my view, there is nothing more dangerous than an unethical president who believes they are above the law. And I would just say to people watching here at home and around the world, in the words of my great colleague, we are better than that. Adjourned.
After the hearing, Republican Representative Jim Jordan said the hearing was not about the facts, but instead about Democrats trying to prevent Trump from winning re-election in 2020.
Look, this is, I think it's been clear from the start, this is not about the facts. We saw that yesterday. The facts are very clear. The witness yesterday, Ambassador Sondland, said unless there was an announcement of an investigation, there would be no call, no meeting, no money. And of course, the Ukrainians got the call, they got the meeting, and they got the security assistance dollars, and there never was an announcement of an investigation. So this is not about the facts. This is about, I think, what Nancy Pelosi said, the Speaker of the House said Sunday, when she said she called the President of the United States an imposter. Democrats have never got over the fact that this new guy who's never been in this town, never been in politics, this new guy came in here and has shaken this place up, and that drives them crazy. They've never accepted the will of 63 million Americans.
The final day of scheduled public testimony also saw testimonies by President Donald Trump's former Russia advisor, Fiona Hill, and David Holmes, a staffer from the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine. Once the committees running the inquiry agree the probe is complete, evidence will go to the House Judiciary Committee to consider whether to draft formal charges, known as articles of impeachment, against Trump. Democratic lawmakers say that is unlikely before the November 28 U.S. Thanksgiving Day holiday. If the full House votes to impeach Trump, the charges will go to the Republican-controlled Senate for a trial on whether to remove him from office. Few Republican senators have broken with the president. The Senate will have to decide whether to actually hold a trial or whether to quickly dismiss any charges against Trump. Bureau Report, RSTV.
Well, our next story this week is from Europe. With just 3 weeks to go for general elections in the UK, the campaigning is gathering steam. The opposition Labour Party unveiled its ambitious election manifesto in Birmingham on Thursday, which is being termed as crowd-pleasing by the experts. In the manifesto, Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn announced his party's plans to renegotiate Brexit within 3 months, create 1 million new jobs and higher taxes on companies.
UK's Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn unveiled his party's election manifesto on Thursday. The party has set down radical plans to transform Britain with public sector pay rises, higher taxes on companies and a sweeping nationalisation of infrastructure. Corbyn spoke in the central English city of Birmingham about what political commentators call our crowd-pleasing plan that has on offer something for almost everyone in Britain, from help to parents with young children to free university education and more money for elderly care.
Labour's manifesto is a manifesto for hope. That is what this document is. A manifesto that will bring real change. A manifesto that's full of popular policies that the political establishment has blocked for a generation. But you can't have it. At least that's what the most powerful people in Britain and their supporters want you to believe. Over the next 3 weeks, they're going to tell you that everything in this manifesto is impossible, that it's too much for you, because they do not want real change in this country.
In a speech punctuated by applause from supporters, Corbyn promised to stand up for ordinary people against the bankers, billionaires and the establishment who was fighting to keep a system that was rigged in their favour. Lagging in the polls, Corbyn hopes his message of change will drown out criticism of his Brexit stance, which even some in his party say lacks the clarity of Johnson's vow to get Brexit done. Instead, the Labour leader says that he will get Brexit sorted in 6 months, with a new exit deal put to a second referendum as a way to bring the country together.
These policies are fully costed, with no increase in VAT or income tax or national insurance for anyone earning less than £80,000 per year. There's no increases for 95% of taxpayers. We will deliver real change for the many, not the few. That's what this manifesto is all about.
Labour could be in a position to form a minority government if Johnson's Conservatives fall short of an outright majority in the parliament, and rivals are prepared to support Corbyn as Prime Minister. But to implement its manifesto in full, the party would likely need an even bigger turnaround in the election race to claim a majority of its own. One polling expert described the chances of this as a close to zero based on current evidence.
Our manifesto is there. It's out, it's open, it's credible, it's deliverable, and it will change the way in which we look at ourselves and look at our country. I'm very proud of it, and I'm determined to get this message out there, to win an election on December the 12th, to bring about those changes in the whole country.
In recent times, the Labour Party has alienated Indian voters who have become critical its stand on India ending Jammu and Kashmir's special status. The Labour Party had passed an emergency motion on 25th of September calling for international intervention on the Kashmir issue. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And now to Israel, where Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been slapped with a range of corruption charges, including bribery, fraud and breach of trust. This makes him the first Israeli Prime Minister to be indicted while in office. Now, this indictment comes amid political uncertainty in Israel, which is staring at a potential third election in a year. Netanyahu has vehemently denied all charges. Take a look at this report.
Dozens of Israelis gathered in protest on Friday, calling for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's resignation after he was charged with bribery, breach of trust and fraud by Attorney General Avikai Mandelblit. Netanyahu faced pressure on Friday to resign, but a senior cabinet minister stood by him after rumblings of dissent in his party over his indictment on charges of bribery, fraud and breach of trust.
I'm feeling bad. I'm really feeling sad about what's happened in our country. Really sad. After all, he's the best prime minister we had all times here in Israel, so... But I'm still sure that the law is going to be right with him and he's going to get free afterwards.
Netanyahu, 70, said on Thursday that he would not quit in a corruption scandal that he denounced as an attempted coup. But his ability to lead a country mired in political crisis after two inconclusive elections this year that failed to produce a government is being questioned. The centrist Blue and White Party, headed by Netanyahu's main rival, Benny Gantz, issued a statement calling on the veteran conservative leader to immediately resign from all ministerial positions in the government.
It's pretty clear that Kahol Lavan, Blue and White, will now be almost unable to form a joint coalition with rotation. If it was possible before, when they were just thinking about what will happen when there will be an indictment and maybe it wouldn't be bribery, now it's very clear that they cannot sit with Netanyahu as prime minister. I think that this option is almost out of the table now. Second, there might be, and it's not a big chance or a big possibility, but there might be some cracks within Likud or cracks in the 55 bloc of the right. Maybe, because the indictment now is final, maybe there will be some cracks there. This could be the political influence of this indictment.
Gant's party, which has 33 of Parliament's 120 seats to Likud 32, said its lawyers had formally approached the Prime Minister and Attorney General's offices, saying it was imperative that Netanyahu step down. Under Israeli law, as Prime Minister, he is under no obligation to do so. But with Israel heading towards a likely third election in less than a year, Netanyahu could soon find himself in the difficult position of trying to win an election while preparing to be prosecuted. The support of his Likud party colleagues is likely to be crucial to Netanyahu's chances of staying in power. Bureau Report, RSTV.
Let's take a short break here, but on the other side, a look at government formation in Sri Lanka, where a new president has been sworn in, and some other stories from around the world. Stay tuned.
What are some key legislations introduced in Rajya Sabha? Some of the key legislations introduced in Rajya Sabha are the Indecent Representation of Women Bill 1986, the Indian Succession Bill 1991, and the Marriage Laws Bill 1999.
3 million people have now given the thumbs up to Rajya Sabha television. RSTV's growth has been phenomenal, with the journey from 2 million to 3 million being completed in less than 6 months. That's over 6,200 new subscribers every day. Our online viewers are engaging with us more actively. Every day, thousands like, share and comment on our videos. So come and join this growing tribe of RSTV viewers and get ready for an exciting journey.
Welcome back. You're watching World Panorama with me, Vishal Dahiya. Let's now take a look at news from neighbouring Sri Lanka, where a new government has taken charge. Gotabaya Rajapaksa was sworn in as the new president of the island nation earlier this week, after he was declared the winner in the closely fought election against United National Party candidate Sajith Premdasa. 3 days later, Rajapaksa swore in his elder brother, former President Mahinda Rajapaksa, as the Prime Minister. Take a look.
Cementing the Rajapaksa family's political comeback, Sri Lanka's newly elected president Gotabaya Rajapaksa on Thursday sworn in his elder brother and former president Mahinda Rajapaksa as the Prime Minister. 74-year-old Mahinda Rajapaksa's swearing in came just hours after the former Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe tendered his resignation following the defeat of his party's candidate in a presidential election to Gotabaya Rajapaksa over the weekend.
I consider the foremost responsibility of my government is to ensure the national security of my country. We will rebuild the state security machineries to secure the country from terrorism, underworld activities, robbers and extortionists.
It is the first time in Sri Lankan history that two siblings have held the two top political positions, although Mahinda is the only in charge of a caretaker government until parliamentary elections next year.
As your new president, I request you again to join as true Sri Lankans to develop this country.
On Tuesday, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar made a surprise visit to Sri Lanka and met with newly elected President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. He invited Rajapaksa to visit India, which was accepted. Jaishankar also met Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa.
श्रीलंका हमारा पुराना मित्र है, करीबी मित्र है और बहुत ही हिस्टोरिकल सिविलाइजेशन रिलेशनशिप है इनके साथ हमारा। जैसा आपने देखा कि जैसे ही नए प्रेसिडेंट का चुनाव हुआ, हमारे प्रधानमंत्री ने ट्वीट किया था, कॉन्ग्रेचुलेट किया था, उसके बाद उनका जवाब भी आया था। और हमें लगता है कि जो अभी, और उसके बाद हमारे मिनिस्टर भी गए वहाँ उनके साथ मुलाकात करने। तो हमें लगता है कि हमें भारत और श्रीलंका की जो रिश्ता है उसको ऑन इट्स ओन स्टैंडिंग देखना चाहिए, किसी दूसरे कंट्री के प्रिज्म में नहीं देखना चाहिए।
The Rajapaksa brothers face the immediate task of reviving Sri Lanka's economy, which is in its deepest slump in nearly 2 decades after the Easter Sunday Islamist attack that killed over 250 people in churches and hotels. It hurt the nation's all-important tourism sector. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, let's now take a look at some more international news stories in Global Buzz. Bolivia's interim government has accused former President Evo Morales of terrorism and sedition over his alleged role in fomenting unrest in the country. Bolivia's interior minister said that Morales organized roadblocks that prevented food from entering the cities. In a Twitter message, the president has denied the credibility of the allegations. Morales had fled to Mexico after the army urged him to quit. Since his resignation, violent protests have crippled parts of the country, which Morales and his supporters have termed as a military coup. At least 29 people were killed in clash between the security forces and protesters since he resigned. A curfew was declared in Colombian capital of Bogota after 3 people were killed and dozens were wounded in protests. Over 250,000 Colombians took to the streets to express growing discontent with President Ivan's government. Demonstrators gathered in several cities around Colombia to express their rejection of the social and economic policies of President Ivan and even picketed his house. Now, the violence and looting paralyzed the public transport system, forcing hundreds of people to hoof it to their homes or offices. In a televised speech on Friday, the president said that he will launch a national conversation to strengthen the current social policy agenda to ease social tension. Colombians have taken to the streets over possible changes to the minimum wage, pension and tax reforms and the privatization of the state companies. Now, 4 Indian origin lawmakers have been inducted in Canadian PM Justin Trudeau's new cabinet as he unveiled his strong and skilled team of 37 ministers. For the first time, a Hindu woman lawmaker, Anita Anand, has been inducted into a Canadian cabinet. She has been appointed as Minister of Public Services and Procurement. 3 other Indian origin MPs have also been inducted into Trudeau's cabinet. They include 42-year-old Navdeep Bains, who has been named as the Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry. 39-year-old Pardesh Chegar has been appointed as Minister of Diversity, Inclusion and Youth, while 49-year-old Harjeet Sajjan remains the Minister of National Defence. The Liberals' minority government, headed by 47-year-old Trudeau, was sworn in on Wednesday at the Rideau Hall in Ottawa. Google has tightened its policy on political advertisements to avoid its misuse to spread misleading information intended to influence voters. As per the new rules, Google will no longer allow political advertisers to target voters based on their political affiliation. The internet company said its rules already ban any advertiser, including those with political messages, from lying in ads. Google will also limit targeting of political ads to general categories such as age, gender or postal code level location. Now, the Google will begin enforcing the changes in Britain within a week and throughout the EU by the end of this year, then in the rest of the world starting 6th of January. The move comes as social media platforms are under pressure over their handling of political advertising ahead of the US presidential elections in 2020. Well, London's glam quotient has gone up with Miss World contestants from across the globe arriving in the city. The beauty pageant will be held in London on 14th of December. We leave you with these visuals. Thanks for watching.